Hello and good evening, all. This is Belial, your humble proprietor, and welcome to the Tea House. Today, I'm just going to do a simple video where I go over my top 10 favorite books of all time, or my top 10 favorite books that happen to be in my home library. So, let's just get started with that. These are in no particular order. Beowulf. This is specifically the Seamus Heaney translation, although the translation doesn't necessarily matter. I just like this one. This is probably my favorite translation. Beowulf is about, if you don't know what Beowulf is, that's, if you didn't go to high school, man. But Beowulf is basically about this hero named Beowulf who goes and he fights a monster named Grendel. But it's really about kind of like man versus like the primordial sickness, something along those lines. Very interesting book, and I like it a lot. I actually have a few uploads on my channel where I read through the book. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. Beowulf's something that a lot of people are required to read in high school in the United States and other countries, but it's something that a lot of people don't really learn to appreciate necessarily. The other two major ones I'd say people read mythology-wise are going to be like, the Odyssey and the Iliad, which I just didn't grab those, but you can kind of lump them in with Beowulf. Those are my three favorite foundational kind of myth stories that I really like. Beowulf goes deep into kind of like the Christianization of the Saxons, which I found to be that's one of the interesting topics I enjoy looking at. But yeah, Beowulf, you got to start off strong. And then moving on to, I'm going to go through some more fiction. This is my favorite science fiction book of all time. I like others like Dune and stuff, but this is my favorite personally. It's Hyperion by Dan Simmons. It's about a bunch of strangers who go to a planet on pilgrimage to meet this thing called the Shrike. And honestly, I just like the universe. It's like a really well built like science fiction universe. It's probably my favorite one, really, to be honest. Also, there's like a lot of references to poets that I like in this book, which is like, like John Keats, which is it's cool. I like English poetry, so that's right up my alley, and especially because there's kind of like this entire like colony in space that was created by poets and the last king of England, which I think is hilarious and interesting. But really, this book will hit you right in the feels, especially for my like environmentally inclined people out there. But a lot of twists and turns. But honestly, if you haven't read Hyperion, it's like up there with Dune, or like the Foundation, like Asimov and stuff like that. This is up there with that. Like people sleeping on Hyperion, man. There's three of these books, I believe, but Hyperion's the one that I've read the most, and I don't really go past this one usually. But like I've read a little bit of the sequels, but like this is my favorite like science fiction book of all time. So like you should read it. Anyways, this is actually there's no particular order, but this one was the first book I ever read, so like it's really close to me. This is Herman Melville's Moby Dick, or The Whale, which like if you want to say that, like I tried to put in my bio on something once, and it like censored it to like I'm like my favorite book is Moby Dick, and they're like, no, you can't say that, man. So, but this one is about like this one for senior year in high school, I did my senior English like project on Moby Dick. It wasn't the first time I read it, but I just picked it. And like I said, Ahab was the antagonist. Like Ahab is the antagonist. And Mr. Coletti, if you're there, like, I was right. You shouldn't have deducted points because the whale is literally just an animal. You can say it's like a personification of like the divine chaos or whatever, but literally Ahab is just angry at this whale that's an animal that doesn't really care about him, but he's going out of his way to put everybody else in danger for it. So therefore, he is the antagonist. He is the villain. So like that's that was like my point of my essay, and he deducted points, and I'm like, no, because he is the villain. The whale is just a whale, man. There's some really good parts of this book. My favorite, I like to like reference Moby Dick a lot. Like there was this. I remember there was like this cool thing I saw at a museum once. It was like a megalodon's tooth stabbed into like ancient sperm whale spine, and I was like, with my last breath, I spit hated thee. Bro, like, this really is my favorite book of all time. I have to say, like, this, if I was going to score these, it's this one. I love Herman Melville's Moby Dick. It's literally the best book ever in the English, well, in the American, like, literature scene, like, that, this is the book. This is the book for me. Like, I love it. And it will make you yearn for New England and being a whaler in simpler times, and you will want to sing songs from the Longest Johns if you read this book. But yeah, I mean, it's really good. No, I like it. Bunch of different cool characters. I keep it on my shelf with my favorite passage on there, so that's kind of why it's folded open, because I really like the beginning of this book, and it just makes me like feel nice. So that's why it's kind of stuck like that, because I use this one more for decoration because I've read it a bunch of times, and this is just the one I have in my home library. Yeah. And then, of course, you got to bring up some other like fiction. You know, this is some really good British fiction. I mean, you probably know this one, The Fellowship of the Ring. You know, I love Lord of the Rings. It's not like my like it's one of my favorites. Like if you're gonna like take like a whole book series, but like if I had to score it, you know, Moby Dick is obviously higher. Like in my opinion, that's just a personal like I'm nostalgic about that book. But The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, I really like. But I also like just Tolkien's kind of like entire universe. It's a beautiful linguistic kind of series. The different languages he creates are really in depth. A lot of people don't realize that. For example, like the dwarf language, which a lot of people realize it, but I think people who like read it contemporarily or like just kind of glance over it don't realize that like the dwarf language, like Kazalid, I think is how it's said. I can't remember how to say it, but like it's a Semitic language. Like it is written like Hebrew, which is really cool to me. And Tolkien was just like really cool. He was like this kind of traditionalist person. Very good friends of C.S. Lewis, who was actually the tutor of Ling, who actually wrote the greatest biography of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the entirety of the English language. Ling is probably one of those like great English converts that Tolkien actually was around, by the way, but Oxford kind of functioned a bit different back then. Colleges in general did it. It's nowadays a lot more isolated in how like different departments react to one another, but back then it was kind of like all over the place. And Oxford like isn't really like a single college. It's a bunch of different schools and stuff. So it's just like that, you know. But like yeah, Tolkien was actually around more than one prominent English Muslim, like inadvertently. Like he was aware of their existence, but like I think Ling might have been the only one he met personally, because Ling was one of C.S. Lewis's favorite students, and he taught him and tutored him personally. Ling, of course, later converted to Islam and moved to Egypt and wrote one of the greatest English biographies of Prophet Muhammad, but that's a whole other thing. But Lord of the Rings is amazing, not only linguistically, but just like from a world building standpoint. You know, that is part of the linguistic, but the in-depth world building. Like Tolkien is the kind of guy who would write an entire like book just about a tree, probably. You know, just to like tell you all about the tree and how the tree is important to the story. And you can't get through a Tolkien book without a song. You know, there's gonna be a song. It's quintessentially Anglo-Saxon and quintessentially British, which I love. Tolkien is like this great mind, pretty much, and he was so devoted in his faith too, which I always really love to talk about people of principle. And Tolkien 100% was very involved in his faith. He wasn't a zealot. Like he wasn't like angry at people who were different religions. Like he might have been a little bit annoyed at C.S. Lewis because he converted C.S. Lewis from atheism to Christianity, but C.S. Lewis decided to become an Anglican and not a Catholic. So he was a little bit salty about that, but it didn't like ruin the relationship. Tolkien was just a man of principle who enjoyed being around people who were principled. Also, I think a lot of the times he was more annoyed that people didn't see the linguistic beauty in his work, and more like read it superficially as kind of like a book about elves and orcs and stuff. Also, like based because only one god, Iluvatar, like has the ability to create life. You know, so there's that. I always thought it was interesting though, because the orcs can't be irredeemable, because in Catholicism there's no such thing as irredeemable evil. So like I wonder, I can't really find any like concrete evidence, but I'm pretty sure he talked about it where he's like the orcs aren't like irredeemable. You know, that's another thing that I found interesting. But yeah, like when Gandalf's like, I love the movies too. Don't get me wrong. My favorite scene in the movies though is like, I am the wielder of the secret, servant of the secret file. Down or dark fire shall not avail you, flame of Ulnoon. Like Gandalf being an angel is like based, and also, I just like it. Like Iluvatar is like the only being that can create, true life, by the way, because the dwarves are created by one of his servants, but they weren't like alive till Iluvatar was like, okay, I give them life, but they got to go to sleep because like the firstborn, the elves have to come about. But if you haven't read Lord of the Rings, like read Lord of the Rings. Where have you been? Where have you been? At least watch the movies. But yeah, Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite one. Or it's the only one I have in my home library right now. But I've read the other ones and I like it. Anyways, but that's it for like fiction. The rest of these are just kind of like different kind of works. But the next one I'm gonna pick up right here is gonna be by Attar. It's The Conference of the Birds. Now, this one is really important to me because, like, it really helped in my kind of spiritual development. Attar was, like, this great kind of mystic and Islamic scholar who was killed by the Mongols, possibly in the sacking of Baghdad, but we don't really know for certain. But it's really about, like, a bunch of birds who come together to... It's about birds looking for their king, but it's really about people looking for God and about the excuses people make along the way of enlightenment, essentially, or along the way of the understanding of the divine. And people make, the different birds have different excuses. And the hoopoe, if you don't know, the hoopoe is in the Quran, it's the friend of Solomon, upon whom be peace, Prophet Suleiman. And the hoopoe is kind of the quintessential kind of leader of this group of birds looking for the Seymour, or the great bird, But it really turns out they're just looking for God. Really deep kind of Sufi poem, Tasawwuf. A very interesting kind of like book. I like it a lot, This is my favorite one. The Penguin Classics has a really good translation. They kind of make an effort to make it kind of rhyme, but there's some stuff you can get. You get like it's on Spotify too. I don't like that one as much, but this has like it kind of tries to keep the rhyme that you would get in like the original. I think it was Farsi. It was written in originally. Yeah, just classic kind of Persian poetry. Really beautiful. Next one, I'm going to just pick up them up because I don't have them in particular order. But this one's really deep, and I mentioned it in my reading list when I did my winter reading list. But Prison Writings by Leonard Peltier. Honestly, great book. It's all about his struggle as the longest-standing political prisoner in American history. He was like solitary confinement on and off, like I think 50, 40 odd years. In both like Canada, Canada and the United States. He was recently given kind of like, not clemency, but like he was allowed to go live in like a private home on his reservation, on his like tribe's reservation. But he's still not like free. He's just like allowed to live at home now. But he can't like leave the property, which sucks. But he was accused of killing federal agents. There's really no proof he actually did it, and the only witness they had was kind of like pressured by the FBI into talking about it, into like saying her story, and she since recanted the story. It's really shady, and a former CIA agent actually wrote another book on it. But like basically the FBI just hated the American Indian movement along with like a lot of other civil rights groups. And kind of just went after him for that. His real only crime is being like Native American, being indigenous. That's really his only real crime. But like, real good book if you like want to like read it. It's definitely pretty deep. It goes deep into spirituality, and I really appreciate what he talks about. Like that doesn't need to be said. Like he'll talk about something, and then he's like, "I'm not going to say the rest of this because it's like a deep spiritual moment," and that's like guarding knowledge, which is something that's very within Islam as well. It's the guarding of knowledge. You don't want to give away your spiritual experiences because necessarily that could lead to people like misunderstanding, or they could just start seeking those spiritual experiences. But I don't think that's necessarily his idea, because like it's just more like what he sees in the Sweat Lodge is between him and the creator, and like he doesn't want to talk about it. Real good book, go ahead and read it. He's still alive, he's a chill dude. This one is really important to me too. Probably it's probably my favorite like nonfiction book in this list. But Autobiography of Malcolm X is told by Alex Haley. This is not my original copy because I gave that away to my friend who never read it. But this one is nicer because I haven't actually read this specific copy. My other copy was like all beat up and destroyed because I read it into oblivion. But Malcolm X's life is amazing, and it's a really good story. You know, it's something that all Muslims in America should read. He's like the Muslim from the Americas. If you're interested in like the civil rights movement, it's also cool. And the Cold War, there's a lot of like that the Cold War in this as well. If you're interested in that sort of thing, this is really kind of book for you. Whether you're kind of interested in learning about like black liberation stuff or just American history when it pertains to Islam, really, really interesting book. Um, Islam's been in the United States for a while, actually, but I don't want to turn this into like a video with talking about that specifically. But yeah, no, Malcolm X's autobiography is told by Alex Haley. Alex Haley, crazy dude. He even like he was the guy they sent to interview George Lincoln Rockwell, who was the founder of the American Nazi Party. So like George Lincoln Rockwell got asked, he was like, he asked them, he's like, hey, is the journalist Jewish? And he's like, and they look, I just imagine they look at Alex Haley and they're like, and then answer on the phone, no, he's not Jewish. And then they send Alex Haley, a black man, to interview George Lincoln Rockwell for Playboy magazine. Yeah, wild time period, really. But George Lincoln Rockwell also got assassinated. He was shot in like a laundromat parking lot. And the wildest thing is people like show up and still like give him homage and stuff. It's kind of like cringe. It's super cringe because like I think it's like a Chinese restaurant now. It's not even the same like business it was, but it's so stupid. But Malcolm X also died. Mullah Graham Jinnah. He was assassinated, and still not really clear on who did that. Some people think it was NYPD. Some people think it was the Nation of Islam. Some people think it was the CIA. You know, honestly, it could have been all of the above, really. But yeah, read this book. You will enjoy it. It's a good book. His letters from Mecca is my favorite part, but don't skip to the end because you got to read the whole thing. You got to understand where someone's coming from, understand where they're going. Let's see, getting into some comparative religion. This is my favorite book of comparative religion, A History of God by Karen Armstrong. Probably like my favorite book on comparative religion. It's more like this book could be called a history of monotheism because she barely touches on like the quote-unquote non-monotheistic religions. But I don't want to talk about that specifically. But like the book really is talking about, it's the 4,000-year quest of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So she talks about just like the three major Abrahamic religions essentially. And at the beginning, she has a segment where she talks about other global religions as well. I really love the beginning of the book because it talks about Revelation and the differences between like, I believe she was talking about Zechariah and like the Buddha, for example, which are like, or it could have been Isaiah. I think she might have been talking about Isaiah. It's been a little bit since I read the book, but like really good book though. Like you will enjoy it. You know, this one's a little bit beat up because I've read it a lot. Karen Armstrong, amazing author. I mean, like she's taught at the Rabbinical School of London. She has been invited to lecture by the Islamic Institute of Singapore, or the body of imams for Singapore. And she's a former Benedictine nun, so she kind of knows what she's talking about. And she's probably the greatest comparative religion like scholar I know of, or at least she's my favorite. So I'm allowed to have a favorite. Yeah, you should read this book, History of God by Karen Armstrong. You will enjoy it. Let's see right here what we got here. Oh, this one is my favorite part of the revival of the religious sciences. Actually, I read this series backwards, so like I first got volume 10. But this is Al-Ghazali on disciplining the soul, Kitab Ridyat al-Nafs, and the breaking of the two desires. So this is like the revival of the religious sciences. This is part of like a series that Imam Al-Ghazali read a long time ago. I mean, not read a long time ago, wrote a long time ago is what I meant to say. Really like deep kind of reading, so I can't really explain that much about it like just here, but I like this one specifically because Sheikh Abdul Hakim Marood, my favorite scholar, did the introduction for this particular volume. So this is like my favorite one because Sheikh Abdul Hakim Marood is in it and I love his writing. But Al-Ghazali is just like the Muslim, like the reviver of faith. So if you're gonna like dive into Islamic like literature, you have to read Imam al-Ghazali. Dude was so goated that even Christians were like, yeah, this guy's goated. Like, we need to like learn about this guy, you know. But yeah, that's this guy was like really cool, and this is my favorite portion of that series. So there's that, and this one's in English, so that's cool, right? And this one's a little bit like, but like Coleman Banks, The Essential Rumi. I have some other books by Rumi, but like this is the one I like the most. Coleman Banks, you can say what you want about him. I have a habit of not keeping dust covers, so like this is that. You can say what you want about Coleman Banks, like he's like not a student of Islam. He doesn't like study our religion. He doesn't understand it very well. He knows the Bible more than he knows the Quran, but he translates Rumi, and it's popular in America. And this was the first one I ever read that was translated, so kind of waters down his religious elements. A lot of people look at Rumi and they don't realize that Sheikh Muhammad al-Din Rumi, he was a Hanafi jurist, like a person who like studies law and like dispenses law. So he was like a judge basically. And he was a deeply religious person, and pretty much everything he talks about is a metaphor for God. And a lot of people get like confused sometimes because Rumi also had a habit of using like Christian metaphors too, which isn't like inherently like anti-Muslim, you know, like, and people just don't understand that. So in the West, people have this like idea where they essentially turn Rumi into like a vaguely spiritual dude who just so happened to like be Muslim. Or they're like, he's like the soft Muslim, you know, he's a soft, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like, not like he's like the dude, you know, like he's the guy who founded the Melveni order. He's like the Sufi pretty much, or that kind of stuff. But he's like the one people know in the West. I mean, there's other, like Tasawwuf is like extremely diverse. It's a science within the religion of Islam. It's not a separate sect. You have like, of course, you have Sheikh Muhammad al-Din Rumi. You know, Rumi being the Roman, even though he was born in Kabul, he died in Anatolia, so the Roman. Then you have like, you know, Imam Shamil, he was a Naqshbandi Sufi, the Lion of Dagestan. Everyone knows Dagestan. If you don't know who Shamil is, at least you probably know 2 years in Dagestan and forget. But like, he fought the Russians. And then you even have like Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. He was like pacifist, you know, like he's like, I will not raise a hand against anybody. And he was just kept dignity at all times. And he was from Senegal. Senegal has a rich Islamic history that's sometimes ignored. Like West Africa in general is probably like this neglected and forgotten part of Islamic like tradition. Really, it's amazing. And they like the scholars of Timbuktu was like the heart of the Islamic world in Africa, if not like the entirety of it. Like if you go to like places like Mauritania, you'll find entire villages that memorize Quran, so it's like amazing. But like, you know, that's my criticism of how people treat Rumi in the United States. They act him like he's like some kind of new age spiritual guy when really he's not. He's like a really deeply religious Muslim, and you know, like maybe it just makes them uncomfortable that they really like his poetry. But you know, Coleman Banks, I'm not talking bad about him. He's like he's a chill dude, you know, like from what I've read about him, and he does his best. And you know, real recognize real. So he like, you know, he saw. I mean, he can't be all bad if he like saw some Rumi and he's like, man, that's amazing, you know. And plus, he's like one of those like chill kind of spiritual dudes. So you know, like it's cool. You know, like I like him, and I don't know why people knock him so bad because like. I mean, I get why people like don't like him that much, but like, man, you know, at least he gets people talking about Rumi, you know, and his translations, he kind of like minimizes like the religious aspects of it, but he's trying to get more people to kind of like understand the overall message of it, I guess. There are better, more academic translations you can read of this stuff. I just didn't grab any of those off my shelf because I'm nostalgic about this one. This isn't my original copy too, because I gave that away to some random dude because like, I was like, man, I don't need things, but then I was like, I want one for my library though. So, anyways, this is not my original copy. My original copy was beat horribly because I used to carry it around with me everywhere I went. But yeah. Anyways, this is kind of a lazy video. Not a lot of like Actually, I think I skipped one. Oh yeah, I totally skipped one. Yeah, sorry. Like this is the last one. I don't even know if this was 10 or not. But The Righteous Mind: Why People Are Divided by Politics and Religion by Jonathan Handit. This one's a little bit beat up because I've read it a lot. I mean, say what you want about him. He used to rewrite Obama's speeches for him. But like, it's a pretty interesting delve into like sociology and psychology of like morality and like a modern, I don't like that word, but like kind of like modern setting, like white conservatives and liberals, if that even means anything, why those kind of archetypes act different. It's pretty interesting. I enjoyed it. So like, if you want to read it. But like, I don't have much to say about this one. Just remember that I grabbed it. Anyways, this is like a low effort like kind of video, but I wonder if people will enjoy it. Anyways, like, I appreciate you all. Can't believe I have 42 subscribers. I can't believe 42 people are sitting there interested in what I have to say. But anyways, I'm here for it, and appreciate you all. Thanks for being here, and thanks for sitting with me in the tea house. You all just have a good day, okay?